This is a story about a dude named Lane. He moved to the mainland and bought one place to stay. And then one day he went, tried to rent them out. And then he became one real investor man. This is Lane with the Simple Passive Cash Flow Podcast. If you haven't done so yet, please go to the website and sign up for the Hui Deal Pipeline Club. And also tell a friend about it. As we've talked in the past, the warm call from a fellow investor is worth more than all the advertising in the world. Please shoot an email to a friend or just mention it on a phone call or a text message. Today on the line, we got Mark Allen from Texas. How's it going, Mark?
Lane, going well. Thanks for having me.
So Mark's a broker. We want to get into the heads of brokers because, we talk about you guys a lot. Thought you'd be an excellent guy to get in the perspective on, what's the best way of us investors to work with brokers to get the best deals. Tell us a little bit about your background. How'd you get into being a broker?
Yeah, sure. So I started in 2009. I was in college, and I went to Westpoint, the U.S. Military Academy. And they provided a $35,000 loan at 0.5% interest. And my family was in real estate. My father was a developer in Central Florida, grew up in Orlando. He did some custom homes and small neighborhoods. And his parents were real estate brokers and agents in our hometown. I received that $35,000 loan. My dad said, "You're going to put this into real estate," because it was 2009. It was the perfect time. And that's exactly what I did. So he helped me find a deal in Melbourne, Florida. We were looking through kind of Kissimmee, Orlando, around where Disney is. And he was linked with an acquisition company at the time that was buying distressed assets all over the country. They came across this condo, and I purchased it for $20,000. It was a 2-bed, 2-bath. When the market was cruising in 2006, they were selling between $115,000 and $120,000. And that started my real estate journey. So I put about $5,000 into that property and rented it out, and I still own that same property today.
So how did you find your way through Texas?
After you go to any of the military academies, you have to pay back your education by serving the country. So I was first stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, which is in Killeen, about an hour north of Austin, Texas. And whenever I was in the military, I actually was still active in real estate, and I was like, okay, this cash flow thing is pretty cool. So I read books and learned a little more about, I didn't have much money at the time, so I was learning about acquiring properties with little to no money. Learned about the subject to the existing mortgage strategy, kind of assuming a loan, so to speak. And this was 2012 and 13, into 2011 as well. So, I started marketing for, owners in distressed situations, and distressed properties as well, and picking up a couple of properties and kind of assuming the mortgages, and either I quickly fixed it up and sold it, or I rented it out. So I built up a portfolio in the Georgetown, Round Rock, Austin area, which is Georgetown and Round Rock are suburbs of Austin. Just a small portfolio there, and, I bought at a good time. And whenever I exited the military and transitioned out into the civilian world, I moved to Dallas. Early 2015 and 16, I sold all those properties and used the equity to flip homes here in Dallas. So through 2015, 16, I was flipping homes. And at that time, it was really, I was selling software. That was my real job. That was my 9 to 5. And I was flipping homes. I was like, man, I really don't have a life. So I started looking into becoming a little more passive, and that led me to multifamily about 2 years ago. So I started networking with some of the local folks, local investors here in Dallas, Fort Worth. There's some strong mentor groups and some strong private investors and syndicators here in Dallas, and learning from those guys. And I said in 2000, I think it was into 2015, I said, might as well get my license, because I'm flipping homes. I can save a little money there, but also set the goal to become a multifamily broker and broker commercial multifamily or apartment communities here in Texas. So as of this year, I transitioned into the world of commercial real estate, and that's where I'm at now.
Did you weigh the how much I'm making at the software selling gig and what I could make in
brokering multifamilies that come in play? Just dollars, or do you just like it better?
Well, yeah, I mean, at the time, I would say that there was maybe a little money might have been a little bit of a motivation. Although it's, higher risk, higher reward. I didn't have a guaranteed salary. So I saved the money from the flips and also from some of the sales that I was making from the software side to put away and basically live off of, because I knew it was going to be, it was more of a marathon rather than a sprint. And, it's going to take time to build up that business. So yeah, I mean, coming in, I was networking with some multifamily brokers, some brokers that were at ARA, Marcus and Millichap, where I'm at now with SVN. And I just thought those brokerages fit my culture best, as far as, a little more laid back rather than going with a big CBRE where you're in a suit and tie every day, and working with more corporate clients. So I talked with some of those brokers, and of course it's a seller's market right now. And some of those brokers are doing really well and make quite a bit of money. So there were a couple of different factors. I don't want to say it was all money driven. I'm really enjoying what I do now, and it's fun because I love investment real estate so much. So it's fun getting to work with some whether it be high net worth or syndicators, but it's cool to learn everyone's story, where they started and how they got to where they are today.
So I know a lot of investors like myself, they do a little bit of just regular single family home agent services. Can someone do that for multifamily? Moonlighting on the side of a day job?
The license is standard. I have the same license as a residential real estate agent. I could support my income right now by selling single family homes.
Does the business require, doing multifamily, does it require, full-time job? Because it seems like the single family world, you can do it on the weekends or as a side gig.
Well, I would say, at least right now, I work a lot of Saturdays too, but it's more Saturday mornings. I might be driving apartment communities, trying to provide data to investors. Especially out-of-state investors that aren't here too often. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes on the weekends. It's one of those things where you don't want to spread yourself too thin. I'd like to have laser focus on commercial multifamily. We also do single-family portfolios. It's a very niche space, and we broker single-family portfolios around the country. We've been doing that since 2009. The majority of my focus is in commercial multifamily and single-family portfolios, and it's just, I guess it comes down to an ROI perspective. It's like, how do I want to spend my time, and what has the greatest return on investment on my time? And it's going to be commercial real estate, not residential real estate. There are some residential real estate agents that do very well and are very good at what they do, but that's their sole focus. So I just try to have that laser focus on commercial multifamily and single family portfolios.
So one of the big differences between multifamily and single family brokers is that you multifamily brokers are really pounding the pavement and finding deals and sellers. What are some ways that you personally doing that you take a liking to?
I mean, it's just like any other sales position for any of your listeners out there that might be in a sales role. It's all about providing value to clients, and whether it be buyers or sellers, you're trying to provide value, because if I'm providing value to a seller, and that may be, here are some ways that I might provide value. Like I mentioned about the out-of-state owners, I may drive their property, take pictures. If I see something that may be out of the ordinary that maybe the management company isn't picking up, I may take some pictures and provide some feedback. I provide owners with what's going on around their apartment as far as transaction activity. Any new, maybe a new company is moving in a 2-mile radius, and it's going to bring jobs to the area. That may be a significant event that could impact their property value. Could be rising interest rates. Something happened and with the Treasury, and interest rates spiked, 50 to 100 basis points. And at that point, I would update the owner. So it's just continually trying to provide value, but at the same time, also trying to be personable and build relationships, because whether you're a passive or active investor or broker, real estate is all about relationships. And we get more into that later.
Yeah. So how are you guys finding the initial leads? Is there like a list or a database?
That's the big thing that's different. In commercial multifamily, or I'm just going to say in commercial real estate, there are softwares and services and sources out there because there are a limited number of properties, so they can gather all the data as far as we use Yadi Matrix. There's CoStar out there and a couple of other different services or softwares. But we use Yadi Matrix, and it provides owner data, including contact information, mailing address, and phone number. It also provides information about the property. If it's an apartment, is it individually metered? Does it have a pool? What are the amenities? Provides occupancy and rent data. What's its current occupancy? Where are the rents? So it's a pretty detailed source, and it has many different tools that can basically extract data, so I can provide that data to owners. A residential agent doesn't have as much access to information because you think about the number of apartments, although DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth, has quite a few apartments compared to most other cities. The number of homes is just significantly greater. So the data is actually, you're not dealing with companies that own the homes, you're dealing with people. And so residential real estate agents will kind of do this, something similar. They'll pull mailing addresses for marketing. They'll do a lot of direct mail campaigns. Some will go door knocking. There are sources out there to get phone numbers as well, and some do cold calling. So I guess there are a lot of carryover similarities between that. It's just the number of properties available in commercial real estate are obviously significantly less than residential real estate.
And that's getting a list as an investor is something that I'm thinking about getting. If I can get a list of from 1970 to 1990 property from 60 to 160 units that doesn't have these properties individually metered, could have somebody calling or emailing them. But I just, like you mentioned earlier, like the return on investment for me is not there. And that's kind of why you guys are so important. What's your thoughts on, when you do contact these guys, what's the best channel of communication? Is it email, phone call, direct mail? Because a lot of the sellers, it's an LLC or a individual owner or maybe even institutional.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be a mix, and everyone, may react different. It's hard to catch people on the phone, but face-to-face is obviously always best. If you can, there are times when I know where a certain owner's office is, and they may own 4,000 units here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or whatever the case may be. If I know where their office is and I can't get them on the phone, or maybe I send a piece of direct mail, sometimes I'll just do a drop-in. So face-to-face, obviously, because you have the relationship piece and they can put a face to a name, is always best. Then I would say phone call, because you're able to have a conversation and kind of drive that conversation. It's definitely a mix. Any kind of touch point I can get, whether it's through social selling and in a source like LinkedIn, to direct mail, to email, definitely want to continue touch points on a regular basis.
So when you meet in person, are you buying the coffee?
Oh yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. So I met with a seller yesterday for the first time, or 2 days ago rather. And she was over 80 years old. She was a doctor, and she has owned apartments here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for 25 years. And she is, probably constantly hounded by brokers and investors. And I've talked to her a few times on the phone. Well, I went to her house, and, I debated whenever I went to her house, because we had talked before and I was actually bringing her an offer. I debated on whether or not to bring flowers. I was like, what can I bring an 84-year-old female? So I brought flowers, and hopefully it wasn't too hokey, but I thought that might open up the conversation. Was able to build some rapport with her, and it looks like potentially I'll be moving forward with an acceptance of this offer that I brought her.
So someone like that, how often would you make a touch point, try and either phone or a meeting, to not be that creepy guy that keeps calling me all the time, but just be top of mind?
Yeah, so again, I started in January, and she was one of I was focusing in the area that I live. I said, well, when I started, I live in Irving, Texas, which is right outside of Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. It's very central in the Metroplex. And I said, well, since I live here and it's easy, on weekends, or if I'm driving home, I want to shop some apartments or look, I really know the area well. I started with her, and I called her, and She's older and she's always home, so she answers the phone. We had a conversation, and I don't think I got her email address until the second or third call. It's once every 2 months or so. I don't want to call her just to call her. I want to call her because I think I have something of value that, she may think might be interesting. So I'm going to say on a typical basis, it's once every 2 months or so.
Right. And I think you brought up a good point there. Something that I've learned is if you're going to call somebody, always have a reason to do it, always bring value like you mentioned earlier.
When I first started making calls, the cold calls were actually quite easy. And every commercial real estate agent or broker, it's kind of thrown around loosely. So residential, they call agents. I'm technically an agent, but we broker the transaction, so it's loosely thrown around in the commercial real estate world. So they call all agents brokers.
We talk a lot about syndications on this podcast, and most of the time, these offers are only for those with an accredited status per the rules of the SEC. Now sponsoring the Simple Passive Cash Flow podcast is the American Homeowner Preservation Fund, a crowdfunding solution to the mortgage crisis in America, empowering investors to fund the purchase of distressed mortgages. The AHP fund aims to keep people in their homes by investing in notes. It's an opportunity to earn returns while feeling good about making a positive social impact. You can start investing with as little as $100. You can learn more at investinahp.com. And if you want the free Burn Zone book, please send me an email at lane@simplepassivecashflow.com.
So maybe explain to us the difference between, you've got brokers, but then you also got the big brokerage houses like ARA and Marcus Millichap. How does this all work? If an investor is looking for a broker to go out and find some deals, is it better to go to the, work from the big brokerage houses and work down to the brokers, or just start going out to the brokers?
So I would definitely go straight to the brokers, and so if as an investor and having an, investment mind, I would definitely contact every broker. So we have 10 brokers in our office, and here at SVN in Dallas Fort Worth, and we focus Class B and C multifamily and single family portfolios. Well, there are some that do the majority of the multifamily deals, and I would definitely contact them, but also I would contact the other brokers. And that goes, if you can find and seek out and get on everyone's radar in your market or whatever markets you're looking to, I think that's definitely key. Don't just reach out to top 3 or 4 brokers because everyone's doing deals. So it's best to reach out, get connected with all the brokers in your market or whatever market you're looking into. But when it comes to relationships, it's definitely important to build relationships with the top brokers in your market because they're holding the majority of the deal flow.
So what's your thoughts on the CCIM designation? Is that say that they're going to have the better deals or more experience?
Brokers look at that as kind of like getting your master's in commercial real estate. So we have one CCIM. We have a pretty young team. Todd Franks, our managing director, has been around for nearly 20 years brokering multifamily. And he started this office here in SVN. I think it definitely helps set you apart. Again, I'm new into the industry, so it may be something I do when I have a little more time, like whenever it becomes a buyer's market and business becomes a little more slow. But right now I'm out just attacking deals, but it's definitely something that I'll look into.
Yeah, or do you think it just doesn't matter as a investor's point of view that everybody's out looking for deals, and maybe you want the young gun to be who's hitting the phones and the pavement, who doesn't have the CCIM? Maybe they're better to help you find that deal.
I mean, it's hard to put myself in an investor's mind, but I'm sure it does definitely set you apart from other brokers without the CCIM designation. And that have those courses on your belt. Talking to Todd Franks, my managing director, he's CCIM. He definitely says that it was well worth his time. He learned a whole lot, and it's definitely helped him in his business over the years. So, I would definitely say that sets brokers apart. So if you can find a CCIM in your area, I'm sure that they're well respected.
All right. So as an investor, I get, I go through brokers, but I also have found a bunch of wholesalers. These are the, hey guys, I got a deal, shooting out these deals from my email list. A lot of these guys they seem to be from New Jersey or New York or somewhere on the East Coast, like way, way, way far away from if they're having deals in Texas or wherever. I think these guys are taking properties from other brokers and just playing matchmaker a little bit and adding another 3 or 4%, which is pretty absurd. What's your thought on these guys and how they operate? I mean, my opinion is that if they worked hard and actually called sellers, they'd actually make more money than doing what they're doing.
I've definitely seen a spike, and I don't know if that's, as of recent, as I've grown my network in the commercial real estate space, but, posts on LinkedIn, and I'm sure you see these as well from wholesalers and people asking, who's a good property management company? And I wonder if some of these people are actually investors or buyers, or they're wholesalers. But, I do see a lot of that. I have an off-market deal in, XYZ city.
And I'll get their offering memorandum, and they'll put a little white square over the brokerage logo, and they'll do that kind of stuff and mask certain things. That's
interesting. So I really don't know too much about it on the commercial side, especially if you've seen deals from them. If they have an OM and they're masking things, it makes you wonder if it was a deal that a broker couldn't sell, or if it's still actively listed, or what the case is. But I also have heard of some wholesalers, I guess, going direct to asset managers and finding bank-owned properties or whatever the case may be. And so some are able to tie these properties up from asset managers. I don't know if there are any, legitimate wholesalers out there that are doing deals or not, but that are, posting on Facebook or LinkedIn. But I know there's probably some investors, and I know local investors and owners here that have found really good deals. And we were actually involved in a wholesale deal in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the end of last year. So a local investor had a relationship with a big company out of California, and they own property all over the country. And they were selling a portfolio of Class C properties in Albuquerque, and he had these at a significant discount. I think it was 6 properties in total. He was going to take down 3 of the properties, and he was going to wholesale or assign the properties to another investment group or investor. We have a long-standing relationship with him. Todd, my managing director, has put him in multiple deals here in Dallas-Fort Worth. So he solicited us, because we have access to every owner across the country, to help find buyers for these Albuquerque assets. So we helped him, and I guess and split some of that fee. I'm not really sure exactly how that worked. That was end of last year. So I think there are some investors, that are legitimate and not just considered wholesalers, but own properties that may find really good deals. And, maybe it's a portfolio just like this deal, and they don't have the equity or the capital to take down the entire thing. So they'll take down what they can and wholesale the others.
One of the biggest ways that, we're told to go and find brokers is, go to LoopNet, which, is known as the graveyard for deals, but it's a good way to, find out who are the active brokers out there. What are other ways that you think that are, is there a list out there with everybody with a broker's license that's doing multifamily or commercial?
Yeah, that's a good question. From a high level, the primary brokerages, at least here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and this stands across the country in major markets. You'll have Sperry Van Ness, which is who I'm with. We have over 220 offices. Marcus and Millichap, ARA, Colliers is another one. Those are big in the Class B and C space. And then you have some of the larger brokerages like JLL and CBRE. So I would definitely start by going to the well-known brokerages. Just a Google search of, if you're looking in Dallas-Fort Worth, for example, just Dallas CBRE multifamily or Dallas SVN multifamily, and you'll go to, most of these brokerages have their own local website, and you can go and find out who the brokers are under each brokerage, and you can typically pull, you may have to sign a confidentiality agreement, but you can find out what deals they have available. You can sign a CA and get the offering memorandum and see who's on the offering memorandum packet. Usually, most brokerage houses are, 3 or 4 brokers deep. We have a big team. We have 10, but they'll put each broker on the offering memorandum, and you can just call each broker and introduce yourself. I think that's a good way. LoopNet, we use LoopNet, but only in, secondary markets like I know we talked about Colleen in the past. So I guess a lot of brokers, especially here, I mean, it's right now it's a seller's market, so it's easy to sell multifamily in a city like Dallas-Fort Worth. So there's no need for LoopNet. If you post something on LoopNet, you're going to get hounded by other real estate agents and brokers and maybe wholesalers. So it may not be as legitimate. I would, I hear that from time to time that Crexi or LoopNet. Crexi is another similar source that's been growing in popularity. If you don't know about it, but I think there are deals depending on the market out there. So I don't know if it's a graveyard for deals. I don't think we would put anything in Dallas-Fort Worth on there, but just another avenue to find deals. So, back to your question, I think the best way is to go through Google and just go to the top brokerages that everyone knows about and search that way.
Quick discussion on, relationships and being prepared. What's a good way of, you find that, taking from the best things that you've talked to investors or some of the best practices?
Sure. We're contacted by investors that are syndicators. They have different equity sources. So it helps if you contact a broker and you have a pitch deck or a business plan that you can show them to show that you're prepared. And the pitch deck or business plan may have, just who you are, your background, your team is very important. And it could be, like your attorney, it could be your equity sources, your preferred, third-party property management company, so on and so forth. So if I know you're connected with some people in the market that, I hold at a high level of respect, then that helps. I'm like, okay, this guy or girl is prepared. Equity as a syndicator, having your equity lined up and saying, even if I know you're part of a mentor group here locally, if I know that you're in that group, then I know you'll have no problem raising equity. But in the same sense, we're hit up by different investors that maybe they sold a tech-based company and have, $15 million to play with, and they say, I want to invest in multifamily. That's a good story, So if you have the money and you can show it, or if you have the equity lined up and can show it, that definitely helps take you a long way.
Relationships is just a matter of just following up with brokers.
Yeah, just like for me as a broker and talking to sellers, I don't want to call them too much and just call them, start to annoy them. But as an investor, you could probably do the same thing. There are investors that call the brokers, hey, what do you got? And they call them every 2-3 weeks. And at that point, you've just annoyed the broker, and he never picks up your calls. He probably screens your calls. So, if you have something of interest, definitely, I think it's important. If you do your first deal, you do your second or third deal, whatever the case may be, that's a great story. Definitely call brokers or agents in your area. Let them know of the story that you just closed. X amount of units or whether it be a single family property, doesn't matter. That's a good story. So I think having the experience definitely goes a long way. As far as the relationship piece, yeah, definitely trying to set up meetings. I have a local investor coming in this afternoon, and we're gonna break down a certain list of properties, build a target list. Local investors will offer to take me to lunch, and we'll just talk strategy or talk real estate, get to know each other better. I think those kind of things definitely help over the long run, and just being genuine, not doing it obviously, both investor and broker want to do business together, but being genuine about it goes a long way.
I want to mention 3 things that you touched upon. Talked about having the long game when you first started out. I think, I always refer back to that talent code book where people are much more successful when they have that long view. You talked about the laser focus in multifamily. I think a lot of people get they get that shiny object syndrome with all this stuff in real estate you can invest in, and then providing value. And you certainly do that with your podcasts. First broker I seen with a podcast. Once you send out your links to contact you, and that podcast, if people want to check out, you get more multifamily based, but good information.
Centered around multifamily, it's just something because I try to do a blast with what deals we have going on, and just try to find something that's out of the ordinary, what brokers in my market aren't doing. So they're typically 12 to 15 minute interviews and are pretty quick, pretty short, but it's just how investors are achieving success in today's market. So happy to provide a link, and also hoping to have you on the podcast here pretty soon.
All right. Well, thanks for everything, Mark. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lane. I appreciate the time.
This website offers very general information concerning real estate for investment purposes. Every investor's situation is unique. Always seek the services of licensed third-party appraisers and inspectors to verify the value and condition of any property you intend to purchase. Use the services of professional title and escrow companies and licensed tax, investment, and or legal advisor before relying on any information contained herein. Information is not guaranteed, as in every investment there is risk. The content found here is just my opinion, and things change, and I reserve the right to change my mind. Above all else, do your own analysis and think for yourself, because in the end, you are the only person who is going to look out for your best interests.